was I here last? Like 3 years ago? I think I talked about the importance of casting. You know, when you think of casting, you cast the right actor for a commercial, you cast the right director for, a production, you cast the right friends, you cast the right spouse, you cast the right agency for a client. And when you get that right, the most amazing thing happens. You are in a trench with like-minded people that share like-minded values. And that's when you're able to go from here to here. And I talked a lot about Kia Motors and Blake Griffin and how they share very similar sort of values. And when you see Blake Griffin, he's a hard-working, relentless, scrappy type, player, and Kia Motors has the same type of value. So it works, And so, sharing a like-minded sort of value is what this is all about. It's about understanding not only, a brand's sort of DNA, but also, what makes people think, what makes an audience care so much about a brand, And it starts with, just really knowing them, and living in their world. And so, which brings me to my topic for today is how to successfully market to millennials. Stop marketing to millennials. I bet you didn't see that coming. I'm going to get to this a little later, but first, let's just find out what people are saying about millennials, because I think it's not about ignoring them here. It's about understanding how important they are. I mean, how insane is that? I mean, they're treating them like aliens, Millennials aren't aliens. They're not like these sort of, stats or, people that we just don't understand. I mean, how could you successfully market to a target that you look at as being, some sort of, some audience that's out of this world, But we know they're important, So let's talk a little bit about what makes a millennial. 18 to 34, right? Everybody knows that. Many are getting married, they're having kids. They could have kids. They're buying cars and homes. They buy cars and homes. And they have discretionary income. They have a lot of it. I mean, where do they get all that money? But they have a lot of money. And that's the problem, is that brands are chasing that last statement. Oh, they have a lot of money. Let's go after them. As opposed to understanding their mindset and who they really are. But I would say the most important part is that millennials are unconventional, and they are setting the pace of the world, of today's world. And if you just think about this, millennials are challenger brands. They're challenger brands for the most part, right? They don't want to follow what the last generation did. They want to sort of create their own roads. They want to, if they don't like their job, they're going to quit. There's nothing wrong with that, That's a value and a mindset that they have. But if you think about the world right now, the world is moving and evolving at an exponential rate that we can't even keep up with it. But there is one audience that's right there with it. And that's the millennial audience. So really, the millennials are setting the pace of the world. They're the ones that are redefining the world. So what about us? Where are we? If they're redefining the world, where are we? We're sort of looking up at them, watching them do it, and questioning whether or not they're even, alive. So now that we know they're important, let's see how big companies are going after them. It's not a day goes by that we don't hear some fact or someone talking about, millennials and all this advice that's being given by all these sort of professionals out there, non-millennials. Every day there's an article. This is how you get millennials to like you, how to reach millennial generation, 8 ways to make millennials care about your brand, death to dinosaur brands, how millennials are redefining what it means. It's insane. There's no one sort of, answer. There's no one sort of direction. It's all over the place. And we're all guilty of it, you know? I'm sorry, Campbell's, but you know what? I just had to punish you because you know what? I mean, that's a pretty good example of a brand that is not thinking about the mindset of this audience. They're just thinking, like Colbert said, this is who you are and this is what you need, as opposed to truly being the mindset. And I'm going to get to that later. So, here's the big question. Why do we resort to conventions when we're talking to an unconventional audience? If we're talking to a challenger brand audience, then we should speak to them in a very unconventional tone. We shouldn't try to sell them anything. We shouldn't try to tell them what they like, you know. But this is the big problem out there, you know. There's this old saying, I think it was Alan Meyer who said, if you don't get it, you're not the audience. And I think that's one of the big problems out there, is there are a lot of people, a lot of brands out there who are creating ideas or creating platforms and marketing campaigns based on their own beliefs of what the millennial audience is. They don't, you know, they're not living it. And I live it. I'm 54 years old, you know, and I work with 200 millennials at work, and I live their world. I listen to their music. I wear their shoes. They love my shoes, by the way. They always ask me, where'd you get those shoes, D.A.? But I'm in their world, you know. I am in their world, so I'm part of that mindset. Age is nothing. Age doesn't mean anything when you have a mindset, a challenger mindset. And so this brings us to the challenge that we were up against when we, 6 years ago when we launched the Kia Soul to millennials. And I don't know how much you guys know about Kia. I'm sure you do, but, when they came here to the United States, they had a perception issue, right? They were the butt of Jay Leno's late night jokes. And you couldn't open a magazine or a newspaper without some reporter predicting that Kia would be out of business. You know how many articles I have of, Forbes and New York Times and Wall Street all predicting that Kia would be out of business? So we had that against us. But we had this one cool thing. We had a guy named Peter Schreier. He was a designer from Audi. I think you all know Peter Schreier. But he created this amazing vehicle called the Kia Soul. And when you look at it, it was just, we thought to ourselves, oh my God, this is it. This is the beginning of the transformation. It's kind of like the Oakland Raiders right now. They won 2 games in a row. It's the beginning of their transformation. I'm a Raiders fan, that's why I said that. But the Kia Soul was a symbol of hope for us, because for the longest time, all we could ever do was talk about our personality. All we could do was just we were courageous, but we were also humble. And we never acted like a car brand because we couldn't. So we had some challenges. We were outspent, outbranded, and as I like to say, outblanded by the competition. And we had to go into an entire segment and disrupt it. But it wasn't about throwing a grenade in the middle of the segment. We had to figure out a completely different way of doing it because we're a challenger brand, Kia Motors is a challenger brand, and we're talking to challenger brands. So we got that going for us. But then we had this.
Typically, it's not cool to drive a Kia.
Right? I mean, talk about challenges. You've got the world, for the most part, that looks at you, and says it's not cool to drive a Kia. So you got that going against you. So, what do? That's when it hit us. We said, you know what? Forget it. Let's just embrace who we are. We're a challenger brand, and what do challenger brands do? Challenger brands, well, here's what happens. Conventional brands go this way, right? Everybody else is following each other, just like fish. Challenger brands do this. They go off on a different road. They create their own path. They create their own path. They create their own category. They create their own following. And so we, instead of chasing everyone, instead of going up against everyone, we chose to take our own path. And we created a filter for everything that we did for the Kia Soul. We created a really cool idea, and that was stop acting like a car brand. I mean, can you imagine telling your client that? Stop acting like a car brand. Telling a car brand to stop acting like a car brand is like suicide, you know? When you tell your dealers, we have to stop acting like car brands. You know, we have to start acting like a brand that has a mindset, a brand that stands for something more than just sheet metal, you know? And so everything we did was right there, was all about being the antithesis of the car brand, typical car brands. And so what does that mean? Let's take a look at it. Car brands treat millennials like the alternative. You know, and you listen to Colbert when he talked about, you know, we know you and you need this. You know, I mean, what brand, I mean, what audience would ever listen to somebody who's telling them, we know you and we know what you need? You know, it just doesn't make sense. It's not like sane logic, especially today, in today's times. Kia gets inside the world, gets inside the millennials' world, and they really, really understand who they are. And we discovered that they're a collective. So what does that mean? If you're a collective and you're not the alternative, what does that mean? It means you're a group of like-minded people. It means you're a movement for the most part. Car brands interrupt their world. I always compare car brands as like, you know, if you're in a bar, a car brand will just come running right up to you when you're having a drink and saying, hey, how you doing? How you like me so far? You know, and you're like, I don't want to talk to you right now. And that's the problem with car brands, is that traditional car brands are screaming at you as opposed to talking to you. Kia lives in their world. So by not acting like a car brand, we become one of them. And when you become one of them, you understand who they are and what they stand for. You understand that it's not just about knowing the movies that they watch. It's about knowing their mindset. Car brands boast about being popular. Hey, we're the #1 brand in the world. It's not about that either. Kia makes itself part of pop culture, so we get into pop culture and we become part of that. There's a whole discovery process with pop culture, like, for instance, LMFAO. When we first did launched the hamster spot with the LMFAO track, we discovered LMFAO before they even got hot. And what we were doing is we were tracking social media, and we saw that this song was blowing up, and we took a very calculated risk, and we said, you know what? Either this is going to be like amazing and it's going to blow up in the summer, or it's just going to be, you know, whatever. And fortunately, we were right. And so it's about discovering. When you're in their pop culture, you are discovering, and you have the pulse. You know exactly what they're listening to. You know what's going to be hot, and that's what we did. Car brands are obsessed with badge value. Kia is obsessed with creating a brand that people would actually wear on a T-shirt. I mean, what does that mean? When you would actually wear a logo on a T-shirt, it says that you believe in what that brand stands for. There's this old saying that people don't buy what you make, they buy what you believe in. And that's what the T-shirt test is all about. So in summary, we didn't market to millennials. We didn't act like a car brand. We didn't try to sell something. And we didn't create an ad campaign at all. As I said earlier, what we'd created was a filter. It was a mindset where we just said, let's not follow people. Let's create a new path over here. Let's create a new way of doing things. Let's have the courage to be who we are. I think that's what it comes down to, is having the courage to be who you are. And so we created a new way to roll. And everything came out of this. This was our filter for everything. The type of music that we chose, the type of talent, the type of scenarios, the type of media. It's so funny. Somebody asked me the other day, they said, how did you sell this hamster campaign to management? And I said, listen, I remember when I had to bring a stuffed mouse and an actual sort of hamster wheel. and I was showing them how it works. And, I was spinning it, and the hamster stuffed mouse sort of fell over. And, it's a dead mouse or whatever, stuffed mouse. And everyone at the table was looking at me as if like I was crazy, And the dealers looked at me as if like I was committing like career suicide by presenting this idea to Kia management and all the dealers, And they couldn't see it, but they trusted me, And so right after the first spot launched, the one that you saw here, the showroom traffic was just insane. Like people were just coming in there. They wanted the cardboard cutouts of the hamsters. They were just buying cars like crazy. And the dealers called me up and they said, "Put hamsters in everything." Of course, right? Anyway, so you look at what the campaign has enabled us to do, and it's 6 years, and we're about ready to do it again. And what it's done for Kia Motors, it's really created this amazing halo effect. Like it made them cool, And I look at results. I don't look at like, all right, so we talked about views and we talked about awards, but to me, that's not it. What's it is this. Car brands, every car brand talks about going from 0 to 60. Kia went from 0 to 88% in market share, which is insane. And it's now the most dominant brand in the boxy category. We actually knocked out a few car brands. So how did we shatter the boxy category? By shattering the conventions of millennial marketing. And here's where it gets really interesting. It really came down to this. We didn't look at them as a generation. We didn't see them as people. We saw them as a mindset. And it's a mindset that basically is all about taking on convention. It's a mindset, if you think about today's millennial audience, it's not the age, it's their mindset and their spirit. That's what we need to connect with, first and foremost. Because at the end of the day, we're all millennials. All of us here are millennials living in the millennial age. We're all challenger brands. Kia Motors is a challenger brand. David and Goliath is a challenger brand. I'm a challenger brand. We're all challenger brands. We all have an entrepreneurial side to us, right? And what we have to do is we have to embrace that side as opposed to just falling back on the traditional conventions. We all know what happens when we try to do something different. We all know, what happens when we buck convention. Because you know what I said before? Is that when you have that trajectory of the world going like this, and the millennials are right there with them, well, they need our help. We all have to be there together to help the world move forward. We can't just rely on the millennials to do it. So, we can either embrace and live in this mindset and create work that actually connects and inspires and really sort of talks to them, Or we're just car brands. I choose the first one. It's so much more exciting, and their parties are so much better. So thank you very much. I was very happy to be here again today. And, after Susan makes the announcement or gives out the award, let's all be like millennials and go get a drink. So thank you.